I think my juices flow all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know as much as I know.
Right now, we've been able to stuff the stuff.
The curse is broken. NC State fans, finally. Finally.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving.
I mean, that's a triple play.
The Wolfpack ain't for soft. It ain't for soft people.
Welcome back to another edition of Pack Therapy. I'm your host, Joe Giglio, joined by Wolfpack great Scott Wood. And Wolfpack ain't for soft people, Scott Wood, but Wolfpack basketball is for those who are on a heater. NC State has now won 7 of 8 after last night's destruction of Florida State. They're 8-4 in the league. This after being 4-16 in the league last year. Up to number 38 in the net, but as you know, as a smart person, your net doesn't matter. They are 3-4 in Q1 games and 2-1 in Q2 games. In short, what I'm saying to you is NC State has a good basketball team.
They do. They're playing really well. I think I got to lead with there's still a lot of season left to be played. Let's go.
You don't want to dump the Gatorade yet, is what you're saying?
No, but I love the pieces that are here. I love the staff that's been put around Keats this year. And they're rolling. They're playing with a lot of confidence. I think the last 2 games since we were on was Wake and then Florida State. 2 totally opposite games. Florida State, I mean, they controlled it for all 40 minutes, and then I think Wake, they grinded, and their leadership found a way to win at the end.
94-66 over Florida State. So we'll work from that game right now. I recognize the malaise on the face of the Florida State players in the first half of that game when it was 27-4. That this is a look I am familiar with in covering NC State basketball. But usually it's on the NC State basketball players' faces, and it was last year. You look at NC State in the confidence that they're playing with, right? At my old job, I would be charged right now with trying to write, why is NC State so much better this year? And I'm going to go right now with the confidence to win some games that in the past they were not winning. The Wake Forest game being one of them. The Miami game at home after falling behind in the second half and playing well in the first half is another. Taking care of business against Georgia Tech on the road. Taking care of business against Florida State last night. So I ask you, as someone who I remember at the end of the 11-12 season, the first with Coach Mark Gottfried, you get to the tournament. You're blasting through San Diego State. You take care of Georgetown. You're playing Kansas. And I'm looking at this team out on the floor, and I'm going, where in the hell did all of this confidence come from? But confidence is a hell of a drug. So how do you find it? How do you get it into the veins, man?
I wish there was an easy answer. I think a lot of it is, with confidence, there's trust. You can tell that these teammates trust one another. They know that if things don't go their way, like T is on the bench, saying, hey, it's all right, let's go to the next play. I think a lot of it, honestly, is that. I think they're just they trust each other so much, and they understand that if a mistake is made, they have someone to have their back, and then on top of it, they're making shots. So they believe they can win games now. And I think even last year, I think they were just stepping on the court to finish the season. And this year, they're stepping on the court to win basketball games, which is a big part and a big difference from last year for sure.
Terquavion Smith goes from a guy getting empty stats on a bad team last year to a guy this year who leads the ACC in scoring. He's also among the ACC leaders in assists this year. So here we are, 8-4, NC State. Would you say that Terquavion Smith is the player of the year? Not just for NC State, but in the ACC.
Let's start with who are my other options. Let's go there.
Okay.
Let's go down a list first.
You got Armando Bacot at Carolina. Leads the league in rebounding, 3rd in scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just counting stats, of course, and what we know what he has meant to that team.
Do you get a vote for player of the year?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a panel that votes for all ACC voting. I do not vote in that.
All right. Well, it would also help to know my audience that would be judging this, because that would determine if I have the confidence to say yes. I think.
Well, no, don't worry about who's judging you. Like, look at it like you've watched the games, you understand. I mean, look where Virginia is. Can we identify who Virginia's best player? It's kind of the issue for them. Yeah, Kihei Clark is kind of the engine. kind of makes the team go. But would you say he was the ACC Player of the Year? Probably not. Clemson is obviously having an outstanding season. Do you think Clemson as a player that is standing out head and shoulders above everybody
To me,
else?
I think it's T and probably Baycott.
Okay.
So I think the next step would be if State can get the game at home against them, I think that will really help their chances. Because I think, I think people take a lot in consideration of, okay, when they played head-to-head, what did that look like? Because it is, I mean, T is, what is he leading the league in scoring?
He is. And
then he's, what in assists? He's got to be top 10.
Yes.
So, I mean, he's got all the production.
He's fallen a bit. He's at 8 right now in assists. Kihei Clark does lead the league in assists, but he's got 6. It's not like it's an insurmountable number there.
Yeah. But I mean, if I had a vote, I'd probably throw it to Baycott's way right now. But I would say that Terquavion is really, really close to him. And that's probably solely for the fact that he's leading and rebounding, third in scoring, highly efficient, and it's hard to kind of, look away from that.
According to Ken Palm, the best player in the ACC this year has been Kyle Filipowski from Duke. Number 2, Armando Baycott. Number 3, Terquavion Smith. Those are all based on efficiency ratings.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I wouldn't have guessed that. I can promise you
I would not have either.
I wouldn't have not have guessed.
Now, Duke had a nice win this week, but I'm not. I don't think anyone should lucidly claim that Kyle Filipowski is the best player in the ACC. Norchad Ormir, though, the big dude from the wide dude. I shouldn't say big because he's a linebacker from Miami. He'd be on my list, too.
See,
in terms of guys I've seen that are impressive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of impressive guys, but when we're saying
Appleby, Wake Forest, I thought.
Yeah, when we want Player of the Year, I think it's solely down to those two, and you could put Clark creeping on them.
Virginia's 9-2 in the league. If they go 18-2 or 17-3 in the league, I suspect we go and we look at who's the best player for Virginia.
No,
you don't think?
No.
In terms of the vote,
no. I think if we were talking, NC State is really, really bad. I think the difference is how big of a jump NC State has made as well. And
traditionally that's the Coach of the Year vote, though.
That's fine. But I'm also saying the development and how well he's got. Now, if that team wasn't any good, I don't think I would look at Terquavion the same way as I'm looking at him now. So I do think winning plays a big part, but because Carolina and State are both still NCAA teams, they're good teams, I think those two are better players.
If we could find a sports book who'd have odds on this, I suspect Baycott would be the odds-on favorite. But it wouldn't be – it would be like minus 200.
Yeah. You get some good money on Baby T right now.
Potentially. Like you said, there's a lot of hockey left. So we'll see what happens with NC State. They're certainly playing their way into the NCAA tournament. I think confidence is the biggest difference in this team. You have the new parts, right? Jarkel Joyner, a 6th-year point guard. My goodness. You cannot put a value on what he has meant to this team. Let's talk a little bit about DJ Burns because I felt like, and maybe – first of all, he's getting in better shape. He's playing more minutes, and that's obvious to me. But I also feel like he is getting comfortable with, okay, this is what I did against the Big South last year. And I had a chance after the game with Luke Tukak to talk to Kevin after the Wake game because Luke was like, now, why didn't this guy average 40 and 20 at Winthrop? If he's tearing up the ACC the way that he is, what was stopping him in the Big South? And I thought Kevin made a great point. And he said in some of those smaller leagues, in which he had coached at UNCW, he was like, we would play a 6'7" guy at the 5 and just make you guard him out on the perimeter, which he would struggle with, right? He's like, but when you get into a Power 5 league and everyone pretty much has a true 5, well, now it's him against a true 5, and some of his craftiness on offense takes over.
Yeah, and I was sitting there at the game at the Florida State game, and Ralston Turner was sitting next to me, and we were kind of having the conversation, just watching him back people down. How do you guard him? And then I was like, do you think Richard Howe could guard him? And Ralston kind of gave me a weird look, like, I don't know if Rich are going to guard him. And
Rich would foul out.
he probably
come on. You played with Rich. Rich is our guy, but come on. He'd have 4 fouls before the second time out.
But I'm just sitting there thinking, it's just like, okay, let's double team off Greg Gant and Ernest Ross. They're smart enough right now that they're cutting and they're setting a screen for the guy on the backside. So now when they cut, you got to guard him. And then when he's cutting, that's leaving Terquavion and Casey and Jarkel open opposite, and he's such a good passer. I mean, if you watch him pass, I saw a couple of his passes. Every single time he's hitting them in the hands.
Yep.
I mean, he's hitting them right in the shooting pocket. All they got to do is, chew on their gum 2 times, step into it, and knock it down. That's literally all they have to do.
He's a smart player.
Yeah.
And I loved what Steve Forbes said after the Wake game, where he said, I know there's 14,000 coaches in the stands who think they should they're yelling at me to double them, but the fact of the matter is when Wake doubled him in the second half of that game, he found the open man.
Yeah.
A 3-pointer was made, and Forbes said, I'm going to sit here and make you beat me with 2-pointers.
Yeah.
Because if he's going to score 2 at a time, I'm going to try to beat you by scoring 3 on the other end. I look at DJ Burns, though, getting more fit, getting better in better shape, playing more meaningful minutes, not taking possessions off on the defensive end. And I kind of hate it when people do this, because if you want to play zone, you really do have to practice it. I would actually zone State when he's on the floor and make him play that high post, and then you're actually then in a situation like I thought Wake Forest was down at Pitt earlier this season. They were down like 14, 15 points, and Forbes went to a 1-3-1. Thought that was a pretty smart move.
Yeah.
Not that Burns can't pass in the zone. I just think you probably have to vary some of your looks, and then you have to obviously – I do think you have to double, but I think it's probably a late double once he gets going.
Yeah, I've always said that the teams that scare me for State are the teams that play ugly. The kind of the Georgia Tech – they'll throw these crazy zones at you. Florida State was a little bit scary to me last night because they're switching everything. And I think even when you saw Burns got in foul trouble, they came out. Florida State made a little bit of run at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because if we're more of the half-court set team, I'm not overly thrilled with the action that we get and that we're going to get good shots. But when DJ's in there, you just throw it to him. And now he's either getting a good look or he's creating for everybody else in the half court. And I think that's what is really separating this team right now is in the past they'd have to get a rebound and run. They'd always get out in transition. They played fast. They played really fast. And then when they get in the half court, it'd just be like, oh, my gosh, they can't do anything. We couldn't get any advantage, any, create and kick. We couldn't get any of that. But now with DJ, it's a little bit of unorthodox way in the half court, but you just give it to him, and now he is your point center making plays.
I mean, he's posting up basically at the 3-point line.
He'll get it anywhere and back you down.
Right. I mean, and that's where I say, he wants to go left. He likes to spin to the left, especially when he's backing you down from that left wing. That's where the double comes from. I think you try to get him low, but I'm not sitting here telling you it's going to work 100% of the time. And I think that's where the confidence, though, we get back to confidence. I think he starts the season, and he was more than 300 pounds at the start of the season. I don't think we're giving away State secrets here. It was a struggle. He was laboring up and down the floor. You could tell the soft hands. You could tell he has a nice touch. So I don't know what was going on with his free throw shooting at Wake, but I'd put him. I welcome DJ Burns shooting the basketball.
Yeah,
I think he's got a great touch. But I think he was trying to make the adjustment, even in his own head, like, okay, yeah, I was the Big South Player of the Year, but that's the Big South. This is the ACC. It's almost like he had to prove to himself, I can do this. And I think maybe the Duke game was the first where I was like, oh, okay, this might spark something in him.
Yeah, and they're all an adjustment. Even if he was coming from an SEC school, or all the conferences play a little bit different. So there's always going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him. But let's go back to the crowd.
Which game?
Any of them.
Okay.
So now everybody's screaming DJ, absolutely loving them. Players feed off that. And I think that's also a big piece to the confidence is that they're starting to feel a lot of love from the fans. Are they showing up in full capacity? No. But they are, loud and involved. And I think that's a lot of it too is that, he's just slowly turned into a fan favorite. Every time he touches it, everybody's going crazy. I mean, he interacts with the fans. I was sitting behind the bench yesterday, and he's just kind of smiling at all the student section every time he goes in the game, and everybody's screaming, "Hey, DJ, feel the burn." So, I mean, he's got a great personality, and I think the fans like him, and he's playing well, and it just is a huge bundle of confidence for him.
You say the fans like him. I think his teammates like him too.
I think
You've been on teams where –
we're not name dropping.
No. Not even NC State. Don't even. I won't even go with NC State.
That's every team.
Every team, like people like me on the media or people who are fans like me. They go, well, Scott Wood was on the same team as pick somebody from your high school or your AAU.
Julius Mays.
Well, he's like the nicest person on the planet, so that's not going to apply. But it's like, oh, Scott Wood was on the same team as Ryan Harrell. Well, clearly they're best friends. It's like, no, not everybody on the team loves each other, but they have to respect each other, and you have to be on the floor and have confidence in each other. And I do think you see this team, and I've said, they beat Miami in a game they don't normally win. They go to Wake Forest and they win a game they don't normally win. The only way in the Wake game, it's Terquavion with the foul trouble. You're on the road. You're down 10 points. The thing's kind of spiraling away from you. You're playing a well-coached team.
Yep.
Wake runs some really good stuff. And I'm sitting here going, they're not going to win this game. And people are getting mad at me because I'm like, I have 20 years of history that says they're not going to win this game. But after the game, you hear them talk and you go, okay, all right. This is why they're winning these games, because they do have this confidence in each other. And I think a big part of that is, how do you not like DJ Burns? This isn't like, somebody who's taking shots and not making them. This isn't somebody who's trying to get attention, in this new world on social media.
Yeah.
I don't know. We heard a lot about, name, image, and likeness is going to ruin team chemistry. Terquavion Smith is the highest paid player on the team. Does anybody have a problem with Terquavion Smith? I don't think so.
Well, and
maybe they did last year, but not this year.
Well, I mean, everybody had a problem last year. But I think it just comes down to that trust. It's like anything to put in, whether you played basketball or a sport in general, especially a team sport. It's like the workplace. If you have one bad apple that just comes in work and is just negative and just talking bad about management and all this stuff, it has an effect on everybody. And I think that they've got a group that just comes into work every day, excited to come into work every day to get better, see their friends, see their buddies that they go to war with every day, and now it translates into the game. It's the same thing with, the Sweet 16 team I had. I mean, I genuinely loved every single guy. If I was on the bench, I was hoping Alex Johnson would play as well as he could. The same thing with C.J. Williams, but C.J. Leslie too, I guess. I shouldn't say that. But that's just kind of how it is. You just got to be there for one another.
So getting back to my central question of why is NC State so much better this year than they were last year, that baggage you're talking about, there's no, to me, Jorkel Joyner's from Ole Miss and Cal State Bakersfield. DJ Burns is from Winthrop. Casey Morsell and his background is Virginia, where, you're talking about a program that wins the ACC and the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like none of these guys have any kind of NC State stuff baggage.
Yeah.
Like even last night, they're up 27-4, and I see people on Twitter like, oh, they're going to lose. Just wait. Here comes the comeback. And I'm just like, and even you today, I'm texting you about things we're going to talk about. Oh, you're going to jinx them. How am I going to jinx them talking about how they've won 7 of 8 games?
Hey, listen, out of all the people, I don't believe in any of that stuff. So I just want
then
to be
why are
very
you
clear.
texting me that?
I'm just saying. I am.
But I'm saying I think this team is completely divorced of all of that.
I mean, I don't disagree.
In terms of they don't know any of this stuff. We talked about you dropped a Chris Paul nut punch on me last week, and I'm like, see, it's already ingrained in you, and you didn't know a damn thing about that 15 years ago.
I mean, you get educated once you get
quickly.
To state. But I'll tell you, it's different when you're in the moment playing.
Yeah.
And now that I'm on the other side and looking at it, and everybody's poisoned my brain as well as they can. It's just different. When you're out there playing, man, you really don't think about all the other stuff, all the bad moments that were happening last year, whether I was at Virginia or, Ole Miss. You don't think about that. You just think about, all right, what do I got to do to win this game, and what do I got to do to help my teammates? And I think they've got the perfect chemistry for that. And that just has them rolling right now.
You can't run hot forever, can you?
You don't have to run hot forever.
Okay.
That's the nice part about it. Now, I would tell you, if I had to see this, I'd rather this kind of momentum run into, the ACC tournament, because I feel like that was the year we really got hot was towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to. I mean, I don't see them being up. What was it, 26-3 or whatever?
27-4. Yeah.
27-4. They don't got to do that every game. But it also helps to see the Wakes and the Miamis, and they can win games when it's tough and it's gritty, and you got leadership out there that's like, all right, boys, we're down, but it's all right. We got time. Let's, chip away one possession at a time. And so you're starting to see an NC State team that can win in many, many different ways.
It's such a weird league this year because there's no monster out there. There's no dominant force out there. They have 8 league games left, and only one of them is a Q1 game. That's like, my brain hurts thinking about that. But I wonder, confidence running hot, can they handle a hiccup, right? Because they start 1-3 in the league. Let's just posit. They play Georgia Tech Saturday. This is a team now they did win down in Atlanta. In a game really they were in control of from the jump, right? Yeah. But this is a team Josh Pastner has had success against. Kevin Keatts started 5-1. Yeah. State's won the last 2 against them. But you mentioned the junk zones. I guess that's the next question for me with this team. How will they handle a hiccup when it comes? Because they are, everything looks great right now, right? Everybody's happy. It's rainbows and lollipops right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the nice part about it is they've proven to themselves that they can do it. So even if something does happen, they lose to a Georgia Tech or they lose, a 2-game skid.
Yeah, they go to Boston College. That's one of those landmines. I think the rest of them are mostly going to be competitive coin toss games.
It's the ACC. I say it all the time.
Ken Palm says Virginia, no, but
you just can't take a night off. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this team is I feel like they really do. Even some of my teams, I just feel like sometimes we'd go through the motions. We're like, all right, we're better than this team. We're just going to show up to beat them. They come out there to beat somebody by 20 every night. Like, they literally want to just cut someone's jugular and win a game. And I think that goes a long way.
That starts with Jarkel, in my opinion.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you have a 60-year guy who's the point guard who, let's be honest, too, is hungry for success.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't have it at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
That's what you want. Like, you want guys like that who've been through it and are like, hey, man, this is my last time. I'm not screwing around anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said it from the start. He's hands down my favorite player probably on the roster. I think he is driving the ship for this team. I mean, obviously you got Terquavion's as co-pilot and, DJ sitting right behind him. But it's just his energy from the time he steps on the court, defending, guarding, he does everything that the team needs.
I actually think you made this point before about Casey Marcel and Jarkel Joyner being great defenders. And, honestly, we haven't been able to say that about NC State players. That hasn't been a strength of NC State.
Yeah.
Well, having those guards who can just be like, all right, maybe I don't need to score 20 tonight, but you ain't.
Well, and this might be my first, dad quote for the year. So my dad always told me this. He said, listen, if you're not going to make shots, which is what they brought you here to do, what are you going to bring to the table? Whether it's rebounding, defensive, leadership, what are you going to bring to the table? Because that's the one thing I see in this team is even if, Jarkel isn't scoring, he is a great leader and a great defender. Casey doesn't necessarily have to have 12 to 15 a night because he's guarding the best player on the other end. That's why I think for this team, they're so much more consistent because in years past, they were just one-dimensional. If they weren't scoring the basketball, they didn't have a chance.
Shouts to our friend Jeff Goodman. Maybe he can give us a retweet here. But you did a podcast last year. You did a podcast when the team went 4-16, and you kind of had to labor through it as a guy who cares about the program, as a guy who kind of loves the team. Do you think there's anything fundamentally different in the way that Kevin Keatts is coaching X and O this team compared to last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, one, he has a completely new staff, so I think he has a different, eyes and ears on each and every play. So it's going to bring something different than what we've seen in years past, which is automatically going to change the game a little bit. But I've also just seen, even in the half-court offense, I've seen more unique sets. Now, he still wants to find the mismatch and attack the mismatch and go a lot of one-on-one, but it's just different, man. I think I said it, I think it was the first home game I went to. The best thing Kevin Keats I've ever seen him do as a coach, Terquavion took 2 bad shots in a row, yanked them off the court, and sat down and told him those are 2 terrible, and used probably some different words, shots. You got to be better. And then put them right back in the game. He did the same thing as Florida State. They were up 20, almost 30 points in the first half. T gets a little bit crazy, pulls them off. As a coach, you just got to hold your best players accountable, and that's what he's doing. I think in years past, I don't think he would have coached Terquavion as hard as what he's doing now. And I think that's going a long way for the team too, because everybody knows we have to be accountable. As soon as I step on the floor, L.J. Thomas made a mistake yesterday. He gave him a little bit of leash, came back and took another bad shot. Breon was in the game right after it. And I think that accountability too keeps everybody kind of on their toes, because they're like, dude, I got to earn my minutes. I'm not just going to be, these aren't just going to be handed out.
We won't have time to talk before State plays at Virginia. And Virginia wasn't really the juggernaut. They were not the juggernaut that they have become when you were in school. They were a good team, equal footing actually with NC State. So that tells you what Tony Bennett's been able to do. But what was the biggest pain in the ass about playing Virginia?
I love playing Virginia.
You did?
I love playing Virginia. I always had good games against Virginia. Shout out Joe Harris. I gave him some buckets, man. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. But I think we match up good with Virginia because we can spread the floor a little bit and shoot. They really want to pack in. They're not going to give you straight line drives, and then they're going to close out and try and make you take contested threes.
They will double DJ. That's what they do.
They will double DJ.
They double the post.
But they rotate really well. And, again, I think they're just very packed in, and they said, you know what, we're going to play percentages. We're going to let you try to shoot 30 to 35% from 3 and beat us. And if that's why you see some teams that if they shoot 50% from 3, they're going to creep up and get them.
I'm going to make a joke like only 2 people understand, but of course you liked playing Virginia. You live at 12 Oaks and like that golf course. So if you like doing that on the regular basis, then of course you're fine with playing Virginia and their deliberate, terrible style.
I love
basketball.
Challenges.
Well, fair enough. That's why you do a podcast with me. Speaking of which, we'll be back next week. Catch us on Apple, Spotify, the Googles, you name it. You can watch complete episodes on our YouTube page. Just check us out on 99.9 The Fan on the YouTubes. Appreciate everyone who has already done that. While you're there, you can subscribe. And, of course, 5 stars only when it comes to Google, Apple, the Spotify's, you name it. So catch us next week right here on Pack Therapy.